If you're preparing for the IELTS test and you want a high band score, then you need to know how to approach IELTS Writing Task 2. So in this video, I'm going to take you step by step through the planning and the writing process that I use with my students to help them achieve a high band score. I'm going to demonstrate this process as I write an essay on the topic of saving money, and I will explain why this essay will achieve a high band score. So by the end of this video, you will have a better understanding of what it takes to write a high scoring essay. You will also learn some useful new vocabulary, and I've also created a free set of study materials for you. This includes the full essay with my plan and a vocabulary list, and also some practice exercises that you can do on your phone or on your computer, and the link for these free resources are in the description. Remember, if you want more videos like this, click on the subscribe button for my channel. So let's get started. Here's the task that I'm going to write an essay for. It is important for everyone, including young people, to save money for their future. To what extent do you agree or disagree with this statement? And this essay comes from Cambridge IELTS Academic Book 19. It's test 3 in that book. I'm going to take you then through a 4-step planning approach. This is the planning approach that I use with my students. If you want to get a high band score in IELTS writing, it is absolutely essential that you plan your essay. And this is my 4-step planning approach. Understand the task, decide your position, extend your ideas, structure your essay. So I'm going to do the first step, and this is understanding your task. Let's look at this task in more detail. So it starts off, it is important for everyone to save money for their future. It's about saving money. It's important to save money, not just for now, but for their future. Who's it about? Well, it talks about young people, including young people, but really IELTS wants you to talk about everyone. Everyone, including young people. I think IELTS has written it like this because often test takers will respond to this task by writing just about young people. But they want you to talk more generally about everyone. So that's the topic statement, and then you have your question, which tells you how to respond to this task. It's an agree or disagree essay, an opinion essay, but it has those 3 words at the start. To what extent do you agree or disagree? That means that you are encouraged, especially if you want a band 8 or band 9, to partly agree or partly disagree. You can strongly agree or disagree, but you don't have to. You have a range of options here. So to what extent do you agree or disagree with this statement? Now I'm going to decide my position. Here's me thinking about the task. You should do this before you write your essay. You should just take a moment to think about your response, to think about your opinion. To what extent do I agree or disagree with the statement? Well, actually, I think I largely agree. I think it's important to save, but I wouldn't take it to an extreme. I know there are some people who save. They never spend any money. They're always trying to save money. They're always buying cheap things so they can save more money. I think some people take it to an extreme. But I do think it is important to save for the future, for everyone to do that. So I largely agree. I don't strongly agree because I have this point which I call a caveat. Don't take it to an extreme. So in this video, I'm going to explain what a caveat is and why it's quite a good idea to have a caveat in your opinion, in your position. So that's my position. That's my overall view. I largely agree. And then there's those two reasons why. Now I'm going to extend my ideas. This is the third step. So I've got my position. Now I need to extend those ideas in my position. This is where the plan comes in. This is when you start to write your essay, you should jot down some ideas in a plan on paper so you know what you're going to write about. If you don't do this, then your essay can be incoherent, it can be a bit of a mess, you might not answer the question directly. So it's really important you plan. Now for me, personally, I have two main reasons why I have my position. So let me explain that in more detail. So my first reason why I think it's important to save is because I think it's important to have a financial buffer, to have more money than you need to live on, to have some savings. When we talk about extending your ideas, we're talking about adding more detail, more explanations, and maybe some examples. So why is it important to have a financial buffer? Well, if I lose my job or if I fall ill, then I might have no money coming in. So I need a financial buffer so I can eat and live if I lose my job or if I fall ill. Another detail, that I need to ensure a comfortable retirement. So in some countries, you might not have much of a pension, so it's important to save for when you're older and you're too old to work, when you're retired. So this is my first reason, and that's explained why I think that. My second reason is that savings can provide extra income. What do I mean? Well, I'm talking here about interest on savings or growth in your investment. So if you have some savings, you can put them into a bank account which gives some interest, or you can invest it in stocks and shares, and that will hopefully grow. This is quite a high level of detail, so I don't really need to go into more detail for this reason. Let's look at the caveat. So a caveat is an idea that limits a general opinion. So I could strongly agree or strongly disagree, but I'm not going to. I'm going to have a caveat, and in this plan, it's to not take saving to extremes. For example, having no holidays or never eating out. So some people never take holidays, they never go to a restaurant. I think they're taking savings to extremes when they do that. They're trying to save everything. I can even go into some more detail here. This extends my argument. I can say there needs to be a balance between saving and enjoying your life now, which sometimes requires spending some money. So I need to strike a balance. So now we've extended my ideas. Now I'm going to structure the essay, which is the quickest part of my approach, is basically deciding which paragraphs my main ideas and the extension of those ideas are going to go into. So I'm going to put reason 1 in body paragraph 1, reason 2 in body paragraph 2, and my caveat in body paragraph 3. So I'm going to write 3 body paragraphs as well as the introduction and the conclusion. Now I'm going to write the introduction to my essay. There are 2 things you need to do when you introduce your essay. You need to, first of all, introduce the topic, and secondly, introduce your response, introduce your answer. Introducing the topic is usually quite straightforward because all you really need to do is rewrite the topic statement from the task in your own words. It is important for everyone, including young people, to save money for their future. So all I need to do is rewrite this using my own words. It is often argued that people need to save more for their future rather than give in to the lure of overspending. So that one sentence puts the topic statement from the task into my own words. So I've introduced the topic. Next, I need to introduce my response. I largely agree with this, although saving can sometimes be taken to extremes. Let's look at the vocabulary that I've used here. So I've started my essay with the phrase, "It is often argued that." And then I've introduced a contrast. And then I've introduced my response with the phrase, "I largely agree." So this means that I somewhat agree, I broadly agree with this. And the word "this" is referring back to the first sentence. So it's an example of referencing. I could have said "this argument." I largely agree with this argument. That would be fine as well. But what I've also done is a structure called an ellipsis. I've simply dropped the word argument. So I've simply said, "I largely agree with this." And although introduces another contrast because I've got my caveat here. So that's my introduction. 2 sentences is almost always enough in an IELTS essay. 1 sentence introducing the topic, 1 sentence introducing your response. You don't want to have a long introduction. Nice and short, because you need to spend time writing the body paragraphs. And I'm going to start off, of course, with my first reason. So let's take those ideas from the plan and put them over here so I can see what I'm writing about. So let's start body paragraph 1. The most important reason why it is crucial to save is that it gives you a financial buffer should you lose your job, find yourself too ill to work, or simply because you are retired. Now I need to explain my main idea in more detail. So let's do that. Many people spend everything they earn almost immediately, living hand to mouth. I'll explain that phrase in a moment. Meaning that if they fall on hard times, they will have no money to see them through. So this explains my idea why it's important to have a financial buffer, because you might lose your job, you're living hand to mouth. Let's look at the vocabulary here. I've introduced body paragraph 1 with this transition signal, the most important reason. Crucial is a synonym of important. It means very important. Financial buffer, so this I explained earlier, it's the gap between how much money you're earning, how much you're spending. Retired is a very good example of precise vocabulary. If you want to get a high band score, examiners are looking for words which have a precise meaning. The word retired has a precise meaning. It means somebody who's perhaps older, in their 50s, 60s, 70s, who's not working. Living hand to mouth. This phrase means someone who earns money and immediately goes out and spends it, often on food. So the money is given to their hand and then they buy food and then they put the food in their mouth. And they have no money left over after that. After they finish eating, there's no money to save. no money to go on holiday, no money to go out and have a good time. They're living hand to mouth. This phrase is very useful as well, meaning that this introduces a more detailed explanation of what I mean. And then I described if they fall on hard times and have no money to see them through. Now we need to talk about retirement. It's also important to save for retirement. So that introduces this more detailed explanation. And then even if you are fortunate enough to live in a country that provides a state pension, it is unlikely to give you a comfortable retirement. So any savings will help you enjoy life in later years. So this is a more detailed explanation of why I think it's important to save, because you need to save for retirement. So retirement, again, is a very precise word. This phrase, even if, is introducing a conditional. So this is the kind of complex structure that IELTS examiners like to see if they're going to give you a high band score. They need to see phrases like this, structures like this. State pension is another good example of collocation. Again, this is the kind of language that IELTS examiners want to see for a band 7 or above. State pension. And another good example of collocation is this, a comfortable retirement. A comfortable retirement means you have enough money to get by. You might not be rich when you're retired, but you've got enough money to enjoy yourself. Now let's go on to body paragraph 2 about providing extra income. So it's important to save, so let's explain that. In addition, savings provide people with extra income in the form of interest payments on saving and returns on investment. So I've given two very precise, very specific examples of what I mean by extra income. Although these may be small, they compound over time, and so long-term savers will be less dependent on earnings from employment. So the phrase in addition, the transition signal in addition, introduces this extra idea, this second idea. Interest payments is another example of precise vocabulary and also collocation, as is the phrase returns on investments. When you invest money, you get returns. And this word is a very precise word as well, compound. It's a verb. If you have interest payments or returns on investment, and you take those returns or those interest payments and you reinvest them, then the amount of money compounds. It gets bigger and bigger. So that's my second body paragraph. Now let's do the third body paragraph, my caveat. So let's put the ideas for my plan by the side so I can see what I need to write about. However, I also think it is important not to take saving to an extreme. Some people constantly scrimp and save, rarely going on holiday or eating out in order to save every penny. This is an example of what I mean by taking saving to an extreme. People constantly scrimp and save. They don't go on holiday. They don't eat out. They want to save every penny. And one final sentence, this may be taking things too far, since I think it is important to strike a balance between saving for the future and enjoying the pleasures of life in the present. Let's look at the vocabulary I've used here. However is a very good way of introducing either a counter-argument or a caveat. It's a contrasting transition signal. It is important not to take saving to an extreme. It's the kind of group of words which has a precise meaning and again will impress the IELTS examiner. This is the kind of language they're looking for at Band 8, Band 9. It's quite a lengthy group of words. Scrimp and save. Scrimp means you don't spend much money, and that's because you save it. Then I have the phrase, this may be. This may be taking things too far. This is an example of hedging. Hedging is a way of making sure you don't sound overconfident. If I wrote, this is taking things too far, that sounds a bit too strong. Remember, it's only my opinion. I don't have any evidence for this. So it's a good idea sometimes to use hedging, and you can simply do that by using modal verbs like may. I've got since here, conjunction, to explain why I think it's taking things too far. I could have used the word because, but I thought I'd use the word since. And a nice phrase here, strike a balance between. Another good example of both precise vocabulary and natural collocation. Now, let's go to the conclusion, which, like the introduction, should be quite short. In conclusion, I strongly believe in the need to save, both to provide a degree of financial security and as an additional source of income. So I've summarized the two main ideas from body paragraph 1 and body paragraph 2. But now I need to mention my caveat, which makes my views a little bit less strong. However, that does not mean you should forego all spending, as you also need to enjoy life now. And that is all I need to write about my conclusion, just 2 sentences. It simply summarizes my main ideas and also restates my opinion. Let's look at the vocabulary. In conclusion is a very good way to start your conclusion. The only other transition signal I would recommend here is to conclude, but you don't need to say anything fancy. Just in conclusion or to conclude are perfectly fine. And then to introduce my caveat, I've used the word however. I've also got this nice little word here, forego, give up is what it means. So that then is my complete essay. If you want to see the full essay and do some practice exercises, then remember to click on the link in the description and you get all these wonderful exercises. And near the bottom, there is a vocabulary exercise where you can match the words and the definition. So have a go at those practice exercises to help you improve your vocabulary. So thank you very much for watching.